Welcome to a new episode of the Orthodox Spirit. I am here with iconographer and good friend of mine, Joseph Metz. How are you today?
Thank God, man. I'm doing well. I'm happy to see you guys here today.
Likewise. Yeah, man. Before we start, maybe give the people a little bit of background on yourself.
Sure. So I'm half Egyptian, half German Russian. My father's family immigrated here in the early 1900s into North Dakota. My mother was born in Shobra, Egypt, and they met each other in LA, and I'm the product of that.
That's dope, man. How did you start your journey back to the church?
Well, so I was raised in the Coptic Orthodox Church growing up, and there was a lot of turbulence then. Our Pope and Patriarch Shenouda III was on house arrest, and there was no bishops or anything in our diocese. And because of that, there was a lot of turmoil in the diaspora in Los Angeles. And my mom was attending an OCA church in La Habra, California. And my dad had just recently come to California from North Dakota to that same OCA church. And so that's where they met each other. And that's where I'm the spawn of.
Yeah.
And so growing up, I always had a connection to both the Eastern Orthodox and the Coptic Orthodox Church. And to this day, there's remnants of that in my spiritual life and also in the iconography work that I do. But as far as how it was for me to come back, being that I'm from two different cultures, it was kind of I was estranged in the Coptic Church growing up. I had mentioned you before this interview that we were like one of four families in the diocese that were of mixed culture, and as a lot of people know, the Coptic Church is very inclusive to their own way of living and their own culture, and I never really felt that I had a 100% connection because I was only 50% of the culture. So with that being said, my parents, they were both pious, very pious Christians, and raised me up in the church the best that they could. But I never had a personal relationship with Christ. I never connected with him in a personal way growing up. So being that my parents were from separate cultures, I kind of gathered that growing up and realized that I felt like I didn't belong.
Yeah.
And so I tried to belong somewhere else, right? And so, right out of high school, I decided, I was going to join the military. And that was my way out. That was my way of finding myself. That was my way of, establishing who I was. And I did that at 17 years old, so I was pretty young still. And, I dated a couple of people, I did different jobs, I experienced different things. And I was pretty, successful in that as far as the world's terms go.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s that I decided, there's an emptiness in what I'm doing. I'm not finding fulfillment in what I'm doing. There has to be something more. But it couldn't be where I came from.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely not.
Right.
And so, I went to college for art. Art became something that, it was always something that I enjoyed. But I never saw it as a real viable career because of the culture I grew up in. As an Egyptian, art's a hobby,
Right?
It's not a profession, And so it's it was always something that they kind of even as a child.
Yeah.
My parents put me in cartooning classes and things like that, and so they saw the interest, and they tried to feed it, but it was never something that was going to be the end all.
Right.
And my last year in the Marine Corps, I started getting a lot of tattoos and hanging around tattoo shops and things like that, and I found, an interest in that. So I was very much still involved in artwork, but not according to maybe what the Orthodox Church would teach in that. And when I got out of the military, I decided, I'm going to tattoo. So I tattooed for several years. And from there, I didn't feel the fulfillment. I was making good money, living in a good area, dating a beautiful girl, all that good stuff. But the emptiness was there. That God-shaped puzzle piece was missing. And I said, well, I'm gonna try doing something that is going to be a good profession for me to do. And so I decided to go to school for art. And my program was 5 years. I completed it in 4.5. But my last year of school, I was very upset. I was very upset with how successful I was in the school system and how distraught I was in my own personal life. And so there's this tear. I didn't understand what was really going on, but now that I look back, I call it a spiritual purging that many people go through. Whether it be when they come back to the church, they feel a purging, they lose friends and family and finances and jobs. For me, it was I had all those things before I came back.
Right.
And so that's why I'm sitting here next to this icon of the prodigal son, because as most people could relate to the story, it was extremely personal to me. My father, like I had said, pious Christian, always raised me in the faith, took me to church Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for Al Han and Tisbeha and Vespers and the liturgy on Sunday. But I didn't have a personal connection. I threw my pearls to swine, literally. He was giving me gold and I didn't know what I had. And so coming back, I realized that, okay, I'm here making good money. I'm, doing what I want to do, but I have a complete dissatisfaction. And it's interesting that once I came to that realization, I started losing everything. The girlfriend, the job, the accolades, the money, everything. It just kind of fell to the wayside. And I remember sitting in my apartment one day at a nice place in Houston, looking around like, where did I go wrong?
Yeah.
And it wasn't except for my father being with me during that entire time that I knew who to call. I called him. I called my father and I asked him, what's the difference between me and you? You have peace and I don't. I'm successful, quote unquote. What's going on here? And he asked me, he's like, do you want to know? Do you want to know why? I said, yes, please tell me. It's because I know Christ and you don't. And that rung true to me.
Yeah.
That rung true to me. So I moved from Texas back to California. And he said, I'm helping you come back from Texas to California, but the only thing that I'm asking of you is to come to church that Sunday that you come back. And I was like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tired of the church that you brought me up in. He's like, okay. In his humility, he says, okay, if you don't want to go to the Coptic Orthodox Church, go to any Orthodox church. I'm like, okay, that sounds a little bit better.
I'll give it a try.
I'll give it a shot. So he knew of this church in Costa Mesa. And unbeknownst to me, some of his family had already converted from the Protestant church to the Orthodox church that were attending this church. So he went, begrudgingly, but because I respect my father. And what was that day in the church? The Feast of the Prodigal Son. So this is the first time in my life that I ever felt like God was speaking to me directly. It was all like exterior motive before, like my parents had to raise me in the church. They were trying to do what they could. We would pray over our food. But when I came into my own private space, there was nothing there.
Right.
But in that moment, he was speaking to me directly, and I felt convicted. Like, I came here for a reason. And that was kind of like the beginning of the end of the beginning.
Yeah.
I felt so charged up by being there. And I was like, this is the church I'm going to go to. I'm not so open to speaking about like these miraculous things that happen or these things that are unexplainable because they could be confusing. But I do want to mention one story. Back in the 80s, I was baptized by a Coptic Orthodox priest. I am Coptic by baptism. And I had no connection with this individual, this priest, for over 20 years. And on my way home from that experience in Costa Mesa, I get a random 714 phone call. And he says, nothing other than, don't leave your mother. Whatever you do, don't leave your mother. And to be honest, I kind of got upset. It's like, Dad, why would you talk to somebody about what I was thinking? Or why would you let someone, because I was very apprehensive to coming back to the church in general. And I felt kind of like backstabbed by my dad for calling a priest behind my back and saying he's going to leave the Coptic church. And he said, I never said that. And so this priest, the only thing he told me was, do not leave your mother. Whatever you do, do not leave your mother. And I tried to respond to him on the phone, and he would not respond, and then he hung up. But I knew what that meant. You had an encounter with God because you made a halfway return to him. But he's reminding you where you came from and to not leave that. And so I knew exactly what that meant, even though it was in a very few words.
Yeah.
And so, with that being said, I started attending the Coptic church. Now, back to the secular world. In that same time, I'm going to art school. I've already done 4 years of it. I'm about to finish. Geared up to go to graduate school, get my letters of recommendation from my professors and all that hoo-ha. And the last year is when I started actually coming back to the church regularly to serve. And the service is what gave me a purpose in the church, right? That was life-changing for me. Growing up, I was a spectator. I saw things, I heard things, I experienced things, and they were deep-seated in my mind, but they weren't internalized personally.
Right.
And so now that you're serving, you're giving your own time. You're giving your own time for something greater than yourself. This was like completely groundbreaking for me. And in that same time, the same people that were glorifying me in the college forum and the educated forum, the highly, accoladed individuals that want to tell you that, if you're away from God, you're doing great. They hated me. They dropped me like a bad habit. They treated me as if that I never knew them. And so there's this spiritual purging that started happening where I lost my job, I lost my place, I lost even like my repertoire amongst my colleagues and mentors. And I'm like, what's going on here? I felt like I had the scarlet letter on, like everyone knows who I am, and everyone wants to get away from me. And it was within like a year period that this happened, where I graduated, and I thought it was going to be the most joyous experience, and I was going to go to grad school and this and that, and it was like, I wiped my hands of this. Something new needs to happen. So my godfather kept telling me about this church in Long Beach this is before Christ the Good Shepherd found its like permanent residence.
Yeah.
We were off the 710 in Anaheim. And we were praying with a Protestant ministry, which makes the story even more interesting. And I'm praying to our Lord, I'm here now. I tried what I could do. I'm here. I hear you. What do I do now? I'm lost. I don't understand what to do next. That same day, this is the liturgy we were praying, in the same day, this deaconess from Cairo, Egypt, who used to share a wall with Pope Shenouda in the cathedral, happened to walk into this small little room that we're praying in. I had no idea what she was doing there, but she had a presence. When she walked in, she's about 4'11", right? And as she walks in, I'm just like, I couldn't get my eyes off of her. And this is the same year that the patriarch with Pope Tawadros was enthroned. 2018, I believe. And after the liturgy, Father Lazarus introduces this young woman, who's older than me, to the congregation and says that she wants to give a talk about iconography. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. Like, but she spoke Arabic, you know. So I'm like, I was hoping for a better,
Yeah.
you know. It just shows like how prideful I am and how much like narcissistic I was like in the process of coming back. I wish you spoke more English.
My way. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
How am I going to engage with her?
Right.
Right. And what's funny is that Abuna started translating what she was saying. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. So I run to the car, and I take a notebook out from my car and come back, and I just start jotting notes as she's talking. And so after the talk, she goes to my godfather, and she's like, I noticed this man over here writing notes about what I'm talking about. I would like to speak to him. And so he comes up to me, says, would you like to talk to this Tisoni Sausen?
Yeah.
I said, sure. And so she comes up to me, I come up to her, really. I mean, she was available for me. She was ready and able. And I come up to her and I was like, hi, Tisoni, you know, my name is Joseph. She's like, it's nice to meet you. Have you ever done an icon before? This is the first thing she asked me. And like I mentioned before, the same year, is on my father's birthday, was the enthronement of Pope Tawadros. Well, my father's favorite saint is the Theotokos Saint Mary. And I had drawn an image, not painted, an image of the Theotokos for him for his birthday, while he was watching the enthronement of the patriarch. So I had that one image to show her, right? And she said, sure, like, let me see that.
Yeah.
And she saw it, and she's like, all right, this is, you did this? I was like, yeah, I guess I did this, yeah, sure. And she's like, so I'm working on a church in Bakersfield, St. Damiana's. I would really love for you to be a part of what I'm doing. I'm going to be there for the next 6 months. And then all these things started going through my head, like, I don't understand her. Like, I have a job. Like, what do you mean I'm going to be there for 6 months? Like, in Bakersfield, I live in Orange County, super far away, like, unfathomable, like, requirements, right? And so after I was kind of upset. You would think I would be excited to talk to someone like this, but I was kind of upset. I was like, there's no way this is going to happen. There's no way that I'm going to have this connection with this woman. And Abuna was like, well, why don't you just ask your job and see if you could take the time off? And so I asked them, and they're like, yeah, sure. It would be great if you took the time off, but don't expect the job when you come back.
Yeah.
6 months?
Right.
We need you. If you're not available, we don't need you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that sucks. So I called Abuna Lazarus, and I said, you know, I got bad news. And he stopped me right in my tracks, and he said, there's no such thing as bad news. I'm like, did you not hear what I just said? They're not going to let me take the time off for me to go to Bakersfield to study with this lady.
Yeah.
It's like, no, just no such thing as bad news. Whatever you hear, just deal with it according to its time. It's like, okay. The next day, I get laid off.
Wow.
I don't know if it's because I asked for the 6 months off or because it was, I believe it's divine intervention.
Yeah.
So I call this Dasoni Salson, who doesn't speak English, by the way, and I don't speak Arabic by any stretch of the imagination. We communicated. We communicated for me to come out there. And I remember that drive being like this just amazing experience. It was like maybe 2.5 hours from where I lived, and everything was lit up bright, and the hills were green, and the music was good, and I felt at peace. Peace. Real peace that I hadn't felt in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I spent the time with her, and we would eat together, and we understood each other for 6 months. Later on, we speak on the phone together, and our conversations last about 2 minutes. With my broken Arabic and her broken English, that's about as far as it goes. But in that time, it was perfect.
Yeah.
And she was the gateway into iconography. And ironically enough, through another video that Father Lazarus had done in the beginnings of the ministry of Christ the Good Shepherd, recorded me for a very short, brief, like introduction of who I was. And someone found out about me in Canada, Toronto, Canada, and decided he wanted me to come to Canada, and he was going to sponsor me to be there and learn from a different iconographer, a Russian Orthodox iconographer. And through prayer and my, how do I say it, my willingness to collaborate with God's will, doors started opening up. And after my stay in Canada and studying with various other iconographers around the world, we found the location at Christ the Good Shepherd for me to work in. And so that happened to be my first church that I did the full iconography in.
Right. So you said something about willingness to comply with God's will, right? Or along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes like you feel like you're doing the right thing and nothing is working for you, right? Do you think that's like a lack of commitment to...
So there's something I can say to that. Yeah, so like I mentioned before, like my spiritual life growing up was never personal.
Yeah.
And I think, and I believe, God understood that. That was where it was lacking for me. I didn't have the personal relationship. So now that I'm walking with him, he's very sensitive to the things that I do. If I'm veering off the right track, he will slap me hard immediately. If I'm doing something that he feels is like glorifying him, and hopefully, I feel that he shows me that in more ways than one.
Yeah.
Peace and solace in my family unit, my profession and the income or something like to be able to provide for my family, the relationships of people that I have, right?
It all changed.
It changes.
Yeah.
And it changes to the bad the same way. If I'm not spiritually ready, if I'm not putting in my effort, which he and I know what those things are, I get reprimanded for it.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was just so open-ended.
Didn't really see like that effect.
It wasn't there.
Yeah.
I didn't have the relationship. He was waiting for me
Yeah.
all those years.
It's like you have to take that first step yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a cooperation. If you're not going to cooperate, don't expect anything.
Mm-hmm.
He loves you, but just like any father, if like I see my daughter trying to tie her shoes, right? If she just throws her shoes across the hallway, I just stand there and I'm like,
Right.
disapproval. If she struggles, I'm right there like
Yeah.
trying to assess what the issue is, and I want to help out with that.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to cooperate with me,
It's kind of hard, yeah.
What
to
am I
even
gonna
get
do for
anywhere.
you?
Right.
if I push too hard, you'll run away
Right.
forever.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was like really big. Like and he knew that. He knew that about me. He knew that that was my weakness.
Yeah.
He knew that growing up, I never had a true relationship with him. Although, like I said, I was raised up in it. I knew where to turn back, but I didn't want that.
Why do you think that's so hard though sometimes? Like we know the right answer, right? We know where we should go. We know we need to disconnect.
Responsibility.
You think that's what it is?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Responsibility. Especially in today's age, no one wants responsibility for their own actions.
Right.
They're all victims. You know, they were raised in the wrong way.
Right.
You know, all these mishaps. What does that have to do with your relationship with God?
Mm-hmm. And
Everyone has mishaps. Everyone has misfortunes. It doesn't matter where you are in the world or where you came from.
Absolutely.
And God is sovereign to all that. He understands you. He created you. And if you're not willing to have that personal relationship with Him, you're going to cow to someone else. I call it bowing cow. You know, we praise other idols.
Right.
You know? Whatever the temperature is of the climate of the politics going on, we're going to fall in line with that. Whatever is going to make us more money, we're going to fall in line with that. And it has nothing to do with Christ.
Right.
Christ is personal. So if you're not willing to have that relationship with Him, all I could speak is on the terms of me being a worldly father. If my daughter doesn't want to tie her shoes and throws them across the hallway, it's hard for me to want to work with that.
Right. And do you think being a father changed your perspective on like how you see God?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then God only gave me that later on in life with that understanding. You know, if I were to have been a father in my mid-20s, it would have been an absolute disaster. I have no reference to what that's like, or how to raise a child. You know, oddly enough, though, I felt the need to, if I were to get married, I would want to be married in the church, although I had no connection to the church. Or if I wanted to have a child, they had to be baptized in the
That's
Orthodox.
interesting, though, right?
It's like, well, why is that?
Yeah.
You know, why is that? It's like, he's on my heart the whole time. He was working on me the whole time. He's just waiting for me to cooperate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such an interesting point, dude, that you kind of felt it the whole way through, but you just didn't really act on it until the time was right.
I dare say most people do.
Yeah.
And they shut it out in any way that they can.
Why is that?
It doesn't have to be an Orthodox thing.
Right.
He made all of us. Okay? He didn't just make the Orthodox Christians. Why is that?
Yeah.
Lack of responsibility.
You think it all circles
No
back to
one
that?
wants to have to answer for what they do. What's the whole world about? Forgetting. So all about the insurance of the future, living longer. When do you party in the middle of the day? No, you party at night. You're trying to forget about the reality of life and where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
And I did that for many, many, many years. That's why I have this icon next to me. I was apostate as apostate you could possibly be.
Yeah.
But in my heart of hearts, I knew what I was doing was wrong.
How did the process of doing iconography change your perspective on things?
There's two aspects to that answer. One being what I mentioned before, where I didn't have a personal relationship with God. And so He found something that I love
To connect you.
To connect me. And not only through prayer, but his, like my one-on-one conversation with him. You have me read the Agpeya for 30 minutes, my mind
drifts
goes off on a tangent, right? You have me paint for 12 hours, I don't even remember where the time went.
Right, locked in.
But where's my mind? My mind is on him. My mind is on his saints. My mind is on their life of the saints. And because he knew that my issue was a personal relationship with him, he found a conduit, a blessing, a gift that he gave me to tap into that. Whereas, other people are theologians and they could speak for hours on God and bring so many to Christianity, like it's like hyper focus on him through my handwork that he gave me. The other thing being, with an open heart, there's a willingness, this cooperation, right? If I had my own destiny in artwork, and it was going very well. I graduated high in my class. I had all the letters of recommendation for my, grad school, and I had all these aspirations as to where and what I would be doing after that. And no fulfillment. No fulfillment. He saw that and said, look, I could translate this into something else. I can use these efforts. There's no wasted time, Joseph, right? What you're doing through the tattooing and through the image making that you've always been interested in, you can glorify me in this. And there's the cooperation again.
Right.
I had to cooperate with that. I cannot go back to UCLA. I cannot go back to making work because I think it's cool. Or, I have something to say in my body of work. What I have to say is how Christ changed my life and how iconography has influenced that and coddled that and made that a reality for something I can do for the rest of my life. And so iconography definitely had a lot to do with my coming back to church, but it was only because of the cooperation that I had with Christ and my willingness to cooperate with him. Yeah.
And you think that door opens up to other people in different ways, and they just choose not to take it?
Yeah. So there's a book called The Pilgrim's Progress. It was written by a Protestant minister in the 17th or 18th century. But the gist of the story is that he's this man that lives in a broken world, which we all live in, and is married and has a child, which a lot of us are in that situation. And he finds Christ. Right? He finds Christ, and his concern is that his family will not. Right? He's going on this journey. His wife is upset about it, that she doesn't want the child involved in it. You've lost your mind, And he gets to this wall of water where you cross over and you can't come back. Obviously, this is the death, right?
Right.
Or you could look at it as baptism, which is also a death,
right?
But and life, a new life, and so his concern once he gets to this wall is, what's going to happen with my family? Like, this is my wife, this is my daughter. I care about these people. And the answer he gets from Archangel Michael is, everyone is given the same opportunity you were. Obviously, it's maybe in a different form, because everyone's needs and understandings and ways of being perceptive are different.
Right.
And he understands that. But everyone's given the opportunity. There's no one that is born on this earth that does not have the same opportunity that you and I have to enter into salvation. It's all personal choice. It's all cooperation. If you do not cooperate, you will lose out. But he will knock and knock and knock and knock. And either it be spiritual purging, like I mentioned, where you lose everything.
Right.
Or he just like appears to you in a dream, and it's like very clear to some people. Those are those people too. And through Scripture, you hear His word and you understand. He talks to you. That's the best dialogue that you can have with God, is through the Scripture.
Right.
You know, but everyone has the opportunity.
Sometimes I feel like it's an ego thing, you know, like you don't want to depend on God, or people don't want to.
Well, pride before the fall.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like such a catchy phrase, and we've heard it so many times, but pride is the killer of man.
Right.
That's what killed Adam and Eve. That's what created, you know, murder in the second generation. Pride.
Yeah.
You know, so like, let's stay away from that. Yeah, it's from the beginning of time. Our humanity has been destroyed by pride.
Hmm.
And we hear about all these fathers, like St. Anthony the Great of Alexandria says, he's presented to him all the trials and tribulations and obstacles of man in the world. And he says, how? How can this be conquered by man?
There's just no way.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Only through humility.
Hmm.
Only through humility. Satan doesn't understand humility.
Hmm.
It's counteractive to who he is. He works on pride. The moment you think you're something, he got you by the horns.
Right.
Right? But when you do matanyas and you pray for people that hate you, he does not understand that. He does not understand that. And that's a physical thing that we can do to align ourselves with our original state.
Humility.
Humility.
Hmm.
It's a lifelong act.
Right.
It's not achieved. Right? But it's something that we need. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I remember like a while back when I was first like getting to know you while you were doing iconography and stuff, you were talking about how we're like co-creators with Christ, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think that's in different forms as well, not just art?
It's in everything that you do.
Yeah.
So we say pray without ceasing. And this is true, like we pray without ceasing, but what is prayer? Okay? Prayer is interaction with God, time with God. You can make your work prayer.
Right.
You can make your homework prayer. You can make how you park your car prayer when there's a lot of traffic and you're not yelling at people, right? You could order your coffee with gentleness and kindness, right? There's everything that you do can be prayer.
Right.
Right? You're with God, in the presence of God. Okay? It's not like I did the first hour and the third hour and the sixth hour and the ninth hour. And these are tools that when we're off the rails, we run to.
To like ground you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and that's what the monks do.
Hmm.
These prayer rules of the Agbeya came from the monks because they have the most like spiritual conflict. They're in the desert. They don't have the internet. They just fight amongst brothers.
Right.
And I'm sure they get
Yeah,
heated.
yeah.
So let's keep that in check by 4 a.m., 7 a.m. We're doing this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
But we have a schedule too here in the world. We have a schedule where we wake up, we go to work, we have to eat, we have to treat other people well, we have to, pay bills. We have whatever we do it with in the presence of God.
Yeah.
Because what's prayer? Being in the presence of God. Satan wants to take details and rationalize what prayer is.
Right, right.
Okay? You're not doing what Moses did. You're not doing what Father Lazarus does. You're not doing what so-and-so does. So how could you be praying? Don't tell me what my relationship with God is. I know my God.
Do you think that comparison or that sense of comparison is like detrimental to people's spirituality?
Yeah, and he wants to make it comparable. The evil one I'm talking about. He wants to make it comparable. That it's easy to shift one way or the other.
Yeah. It feels like humans are so like weak-minded when it comes to certain things like that. Like we're easily swayed one way or another.
Well, is the tree of what? Knowledge.
Yeah.
We think we have knowledge.
Right. Yeah, we don't know anything.
We don't know anything. We don't know our right from our left. I spent my entire life thinking I was doing something that was good.
Yeah.
Until I realized I didn't. And why? Because I had nothing. I was stripped naked.
Yeah. And it takes like a humbleness to say I was wrong. Like everything I was doing wasn't right, you know?
And it's still a constant thing.
Yeah.
I still think I tie my own shoes in the morning.
Right.
Absolutely not. I still think I drink my water out of the bottle,
right.
like nice and cold. He gives me the ability to do that.
That's such an interesting way to think about things too.
Simple.
Yeah.
We have sight. That's God-given. There's nothing granted to us out of willy-nilly. And that's exactly what the evil one wants to tell us.
Yeah.
That our humanity is just like mishapped. A big bang.
Right, an accident.
You know, like, and then we're here.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah, yeah.
Like any rational mind even would like differ with that.
Right.
But people don't want to be honest. They want to live in their own reality.
I think that's a huge part of it. Is like they want to live
because
in this delusion.
They don't want to have the responsibility.
Yeah.
Responsibility.
And you mentioned something in the beginning about how you felt out of place, right? Whether it's because
and this is a trick of Satan.
Yeah.
All my rational mind. Oh, you're half Egyptian.
Right.
You're
right,
not fully
right.
Egyptian. Oh, you go to a private school away from all these other people. You don't know any of the kids you go to school with. You go to a Catholic school, you're not Catholic.
Right.
Your parents are working 2 jobs for you to go to this school that you hate.
Right.
And so I start to build up all these resentments and
how do you get away from that
animosities.
though?
It was through God's intervention. It wasn't through my action. He stripped me away from all of it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I was making good money and tattooing. I was living in a very amazing area with a very beautiful girlfriend with friends all around me. And I had a sous chef that lived right next door to me who would cook me these amazing 5-star dinners every night. And then bit by bit, chomping away.
Right.
And all I had to look at was my dad. My dad, who maybe wasn't as affluent, maybe didn't have all these accolades that I had.
He
had peace.
Yeah, yeah.
He had peace. What's that? How do you buy that? You don't.
Right.
How do you gain that? You don't. It's only through cooperation with the Father. You will not have peace outside of Him. And this is what this world is always looking for. That's why they can sell you stuff.
Right.
Your teeth will be whiter.
Yeah.
Your eyes will be brighter. You'll have more hair on your head. You know, other things I don't even want to mention that they try to sell to you and tell you that it's going to be a good thing for your life. And what do? They just bring people further away from the truth.
Yeah. For people that feel like they had that time in the world and they kind of swayed away. I ask this question a lot when I talk to people. Like I said, people feel like they've gone too far or done too wrong, right? How do you get over that mindset of like feeling like you're worthy enough to come back to Christ, right?
Well, we're never worthy
right.
enough. That's something for us to all understand. My godfather told me one thing, and I think it will hit the nail on the head, but if you want me to expand on this, I can. But he says, whatever negative thought comes into your head is from Satan. Whatever good thought you have comes from God. None of them are yours. You don't have to own any of them. Right?
That's so interesting because sometimes we don't think of it like that. We think everything going on in our head is ours, right?
Satan, what I mean, lowercase he, the one below our feet, he wants us to think that.
Right.
Absolutely. You've gone way too far. Do you see all these other people around you? You'll never attest to that.
Yeah.
This exact desperate, like distraught, I'm never going to make it. That's where he wants you to be. Why? Because he doesn't want you to attain what God has planned for you. It's funny because it's pride that motivates Satan.
Right.
He hates the fact that we have something greater than what he has. His jealousy, pride. He's trying to drag us down with that same methodology. Right? Like, pride. Yeah, you're right. You know what? There's no way that I could be like, Saint Justus or Saint Anthony the Great. Like, there's no way.
So let me just give up.
And then you're on your own autopilot.
Right.
He doesn't have to work on you anymore.
And sometimes that autopilot, like when you don't have that perspective of God in your life, seems like the easier route. Because it doesn't always seem like following Christ is the easier route, right?
Well,
Which
it shouldn't,
isn't.
and it shouldn't be.
Right.
Was Christ's life easy?
No, not at all.
And so should ours be, if we're supposed to be followers of him? But the victory is in the struggle. The victory is in the struggle.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
It's true.
Yeah.
How can you, like, for instance, let's bring it back down to elementary school, right? If you had a teacher that really liked you, okay, and she gave you an A on an assignment that you really shouldn't have gotten an A on, right? And then you take another class that was really difficult, and you're like, how am I going to pass this class? I'm like going to fail this class. And you get like a C+. And you're like, oh, I passed this class, And if you look at those two grades next to each other, which one has the same worth?
The one you struggled for.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, like, what does it mean if we trip and fall into salvation? There's no relationship.
Yeah. There's no appreciation.
I mean, everyone has a family to some degree, right? Like, even if it's like adopted or like whatever, like people that you meet in your life that you consider to be family,
Right.
It's hard.
Yeah.
You don't agree with each other. You don't like them for certain periods of time. But you know that there's a greater motivation other than your emotion that day.
Right.
Right? That's another thing. Don't live off of emotion. Emotion is from the heart, and in the scripture it says the heart deceives.
Right.
So we have to be careful about how we think and why we're thinking it.
Yeah.
Is it because someone poked our ego? Or is it because God's talking to me? Or what is it? And if it's God talking to me through the prayers that we do, through the reading of the scriptures that we do, through the confession and repentance that's involved in our lives, through taking the Eucharist, the communion, the body and the blood of our Lord Jesus Christ for the remission of sins, if we're not doing these things, expect to fail. Expect to fail. Because you better believe that the evil one has been working for over millennia to make sure that none of that means anything to you. Even your own humanity and what that's worth. Nothing. We see that today. What's gender? What's, if you believe this, if you believe that, it's all the same. We're all the same God.
Yeah.
It's like, let's demean and undermine anything that is true to who you are as a creation of God in order to take you away far enough till you'll never look back.
Right. It's like diluting the truth, so everything is confusing.
And we'll take it back to Adam and Eve again.
Yeah.
He didn't necessarily lie.
Right.
Right, to Adam and Eve. He's like, is that what he said?
Yeah. Confused them a bit. Yeah.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Because we could paint that in a couple other ways, and make that something that you believe in, that I believe in, that we all believe in.
This distorted version, yeah.
Right, and a distortion is perfect synonym to what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And the emotion part is also interesting because a lot of the reactions happen because of emotionally charged moments or conversations.
And you're justified.
Yeah, I feel like this.
This is me right now, this, and that's their reality. But that's not reality.
Right. Yeah, taking out your thoughts and emotions is a game changer.
This is where the beauty of the mother of our church has all these things to accompany that.
Yeah.
Like having a spiritual father. Like everyone's fasting rule's different. Some people have illness, right? And they could only fast from a certain time.
Right.
or they have to take medication, so they have to eat a certain type of food that's not within the fasting rule. And there's people that have been like super far away that need like extreme fasting, and there's people that are older and children and being pregnant, and there's so many different variations of what the fasting rule is. But it's not about non-dairy for 40 days.
Right.
It's about how am I suppressing my emotions, my desires, my wants and needs in the world, and converting them into what God's will is for me, and what He wants me to do, and what I need to do to have interaction and cooperation with Him. You know, and so like when we're talking, there's no cookie cutter like answer to that, you know, but it's cooperation. And these priests that we have, they're not just priests walking around in black that like, and even in the Coptic church, they don't even get to choose to be priests. You know, they're selected. You know, so we have to respect and understand their role and use them. They're literally walking ambassadors of Christ for us.
Just there to help.
And if they don't know the answer, there's a plethora of other priests and bishops that they can refer to. You know, there's a safety net in that. And it takes some of this responsibility off our hands because we're trying to look for information. Well, the internet's not going to tell us everything that we need to know. And if we do, how do you sort through it? Or
just overload.
You know,
knowledge.
you talk to like you and I, like I'm just a subdeacon in the church. I have no right to be telling us what our theology is. I could only tell you what Christ has done personally in my life. But these priests are there for that very reason. And if you're not willing to have the cooperation with what God sent to us as priests on the earth, expect to be confused. You will be confused because Satan wants you to be.
And what would you tell somebody that has kind of felt that calling, or that torn between like, I'm not happy here, I'm not at peace here, and I know I could be at peace here, but they haven't made that like full commitment?
Oh man, so like the big rationalization that I had growing up was I don't fit in. It's not about anybody else. You don't need to fit in. Okay? You are there for your own salvation. I love the term take salvation by force. Like there's an icon of Christ wearing armor and a sword, and He's fighting for your salvation. Like it's a war. It's a war over your soul. Okay? Better believe that there's going to be enemies, foreign and domestic. Okay? I was in the Marine Corps. The Constitution that we upheld to is to fight all enemies, foreign and domestic. Unfortunately, we have domestic, enemies within the church that I'm not saying they're demon possessed, but they don't want you to be there at that moment. You're not there for them. You're not there for anyone else but your own salvation. And that will stop you from getting thrown off left and right when people treat you bad. Because they will. Father Thomas Hofko of blessed memory said, if you attend a church that's perfect, leave it. Because you're going to ruin it. You're going to ruin it. You know, like there's no such thing as a perfect church. So if that's what you're looking for, good luck. But don't come for other people. Don't come for your family. Don't come for your wife. Don't come for your kids. Come for your salvation. If you're not going to come for your own salvation, expect retaliation and expect like failure. Because it's not about anybody else. You're going to be asked about your own soul.
This was such a great talk, man. Thank you so much for doing this, and I would love to sit you down another time when you're free.
Maybe we can talk more about iconography.
Yeah. No.